Hi guys, Kar Yong here and welcome to the final episode of how to trade with Fibonacci ratios. Now if you have missed any of the previous episode, I would strongly recommend that you pause this video right now, go through the previous first 3 episodes before you come back to this particular video, because everything we have covered in this entire series is built up from the very first episode. Okay, so in today's topic, what we're going to talk about is Fibonacci Expansion, which is slightly different from retracement and of course the previous one we talked about extension. So as usual, okay, what we're going to go through is first we're going to touch on the principles, the concept of what is Fibonacci expansion. Okay, we're going to go into the second portion then where we're going to share with you how to use this particular tool, this Fibonacci expansion, and the last part of this video we're going to talk about the strategy component, how you incorporate that into your trading. So let's get started with what is Fibonacci expansion. Okay, so this is not something that is very common compared to, let's say, Fibonacci retracement, because that's the most common tool that many traders use. But for me, I use expansion quite extensively, quite a lot, and I of course incorporate that into my own trading strategy as well. Okay, so the concept of expansion, okay, is slightly similar to extension itself. Okay, to give you some analogy, right? Now, let's say this is the starting point, okay, and this is where price starts, and it makes a new high, and it starts to form a retracement, okay, and the next part here, of course, it develops another new high, a higher high, okay, and from here, okay, if I were to put in some numbers, this should be very familiar with you guys. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And with 4 points here being established, that's what we meant by an uptrend. Okay, it's a very objective way of identifying and defining a trend. Okay, now the idea of expansion is this. Okay, now that price has 4 points, it's definitely an uptrend. The concept here of expansion is we want to know, okay, based on this length, okay, which is the momentum, or I would say how much price has moved between 3 to 4. Okay, and we want to measure it relative to like 1 and 2. Okay, so the idea here is that, let's say if this is 100 units, okay, we want to know relative to that, okay, from here to here, how long is this, or how much did price move? Okay, so if let's say this is also 100 units, okay, then what this means is that 1 to 2, this length, this magnitude of price is equivalent to 3 to 4. Okay, and usually the term that we use is we say that this is of equal length, it's 1:1 in terms of its ratio. Okay, so the idea of expansion is again measuring based on taking reference of 1 to 2. Okay, and you need to tell the tool as to where is it that you want to start the point 3, and usually point 3 here is the end of a retracement. Okay, and that's why I say it's important for you to understand the previous few concepts and build up into what is Fibonacci expansion. Okay, some common ratios that perhaps you want to understand is, of course, it's not going to be 100% all the time. It's not going to be 1:1, right? Sometimes this might extend a little bit further. Some of the common ratios here, of course, you do have 1:7. If it extends all the way up, you do have 1:6, 1:8 as well. Okay, and of course, if it's equal length here, this is what we call by 100%. Okay, these are all in percentages. Okay, so the idea here again, you need 3 points to establish and measure this. Okay, so you need an initial starting point, okay, which is point 1 over here. You need another point here, which is point 2. Okay, that's your first unit of measurement that you want to measure, and you need this point 3. Okay, so to fully measure expansion, you do need 1 point, 1 point, and 1 point. You need a total of 3 points. Okay, so from there, automatically the tool will actually pull out all this, and you know exactly where you are doing. Okay, so the idea of this again, the principle is this. Okay, how we use it. Okay, what are some of the general approaches that we use to Fibonacci expansion in terms of our trading? Some traders use this for target profit. Okay, so the idea here is if you have first point, your second point, and of course the third point is completed, which means perhaps you utilize the Fibonacci retracement strategy to enter somewhere here and price is starting to go back up. Okay, then what you can do is you have 3 points established. You can use the expansion tool to project where would price likely head towards, okay, where you want to put your target profit. Okay. The other way to look at this is that some traders use this to also look up for entry price point. Okay. So what I mean is that if now you have, okay, let me flip it and show you another one, right? Now let's say right now, okay, the idea is this, okay, I use some example that is on the opposite direction so you get the idea. Okay, now let's say this is coming down. Okay, obviously this is a downtrend, right? You do have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and let's say from here this is a downtrend, you're interested to sell, and during this period, of course, then there are certain strategies that we talked about before using retracement, but now this video we're going to talk about expansion. Okay, so the idea here is, let's say if you start to see okay, this is forming kind of like a retracement based on this downtrend, and if I were to include in some, if I were to include in, let's say, okay, there's a structure level here, okay, and of course this is where the structure level is as well, and I see here there is some form of like 3-wave move, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I can apply this principle of Fibonacci expansion into this small portion here. Okay, and how I do it is this. Okay, so I would take this first point, second point, and third point. Okay, so how I pull my fib is 1, 2, 3. Okay, and what the expansion ratio will then come out over here is that, okay, if this is 100%, this is 1, 2, 7. Okay, and this zone becomes a key area where many traders will then start to see, okay, this area here becomes a potential area where I can look up for sell opportunity. Why? Okay, mainly because you have, number one, it's a downtrend, you have a structural level here. Perhaps if you start to pull in your fib from this point to this point, you pull a Fibonacci ratio. This is perhaps somewhere around at 50 to 61.8%. There's some ratios coming together, we call it confluences. Okay, and from there, okay, there are many ways to gain trade. This is where you can start to look for the sell. Okay, so Fibonacci expansion is really a very flexible tool. Okay, where you can use it in terms of looking for profit target. You can also use it to identify potential entry level. Okay, so this example here is to show you entry level based on the downtrend. And of course, the previous one that I drew over here is based on an uptrend. I'm looking out for a potential profit target.
Hi guys, now that you have understood the concept and the principles of how to use the Fibonacci expansion, and of course in the previous episode we talked about the entire idea of how to objectify a trend, what is Fibonacci retracement, what is Fibonacci extension. Okay, in this video here, at least at this part of this video, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put all of this together. I'm gonna go into the chart to show you how to pull, how to use and utilize the Fibonacci expansion. Okay, and of course, implementing some of these concepts together to include it as part of your trading strategy. Okay, so with that, let's dive straight into the technical charts. Okay, so again, I'm using TradingView over here. What you can do on TradingView is that on the left hand side of it, you'll be able to locate your Fibonacci expansion too. Okay, so you actually need to go over to like the third icon over here. Okay, you click on the mini arrow, you'll be able to see that there's this Fibonacci trend-based Fib extension. Okay, so again, every platform would have their name slightly different. Okay, but the important part here again, you want to understand the principles, the concept of it. Okay, now when you click onto this, what you then need to do is you need to tell your chart, your platform, what are the 3 points that you want to use to measure. Okay, so in this case here, I'll just use a very simple one over here for example. Okay, we'll use this high here as our initial starting point. So I'll give it a click. Okay, I need to tell my platform the second point, right? So the second point here is this. Okay, so because this is coming down. Okay, so this is the starting point of it. This is the new low. Okay, this is my second point. And the third point, of course, we need to find where's the retracement, where has it ended. So in this case here is somewhere around here, so I'll just project it slightly to the right. Okay, and I'll click it again. So what I have is this is my 1 point, second point, and this is the third point, and you can see this is where the ratios automatically come in. Okay, now on TradingView itself, you can actually edit to show whichever levels of Fibonacci expansion that you want. Okay, so all you have to do is there's this gear icon, the setting icon, so click onto it, over here under style, you'll be able to see and of course input the various Fibonacci levels. Okay, the most common one of course is 100%, which is 1, and of course 123.6 or 127.2, which you need to key in over here as well. Okay, so if you want, these are the 4 most common ratios that I use. Okay, you can pause this video, go to your platform, go to TradingView, set up accordingly as well. Okay, so the 4 common ratios that we use, or I personally use a lot, is 0.618, 1, 1.236, and of course 1.618. Okay, but most often we actually use 1 and 1.236. Okay, so you can see over here, this is 1. What does this mean? Again, you guys should be familiar with the principles. This is where you take the measurement. Okay, if this is 100%, it means that from here to here, this length is equivalent to this length. Okay, and most of the time traders will just call it equal length or 1:1 ratio. Okay, so that's what it means. So again, how we utilize this is that you can either use this for an entry technique, or you can also use it for a profit target. Okay, so for example, if I just go back historically to show you the principles of this, okay, if you see that, alright, okay, this is a high over here and we have a very strong move to the downside and we are seeing a correction. Okay, so if you're anticipating that, okay, I want to look for a sell, where should I put my profit target? You can utilize this Fibonacci expansion concept. Using this tool here, you just need to pinpoint the starting point, okay, the second point, and of course the third point over here is where your retracement ended, okay, which is of course somewhere here. Okay, so you do need to have that 3 points. Okay, and once that's established, you know that, okay, so if it's equal length, okay, then you can anticipate that this move here is likely going to come down towards this area. Okay, and of course, if you play this out, that's what it happens. Okay, so again, this is not going to be like 100% sure thing that price will always go towards that Fibonacci 100% level. But based on probability, based on the nature and the characteristics of how market move, most of the time, that's how it tends to happen. Okay, now that's how you can use this tool to help you pinpoint profit targets. Okay, what we can do also, of course, we can include this and utilize this tool to identify where we want to get it. Okay, so now let's go back to this a little bit over here. Okay, you need to, of course, not just use this tool independently, you need to incorporate all the principles that we talked about before. Okay, so you can see over here, this has formed a low, right? Then you have this here, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high. Okay, technically from here, you are in the downtrend. And of course, if we are continuing down like that, okay, you do have a very obvious downtrend, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's sufficient to know that it's a downtrend. Now, from this perspective here, then you know that, okay, if this is gonna be a downtrend, I'm looking for a sell. If this is a correction, okay, then I will be interested to find for areas where I can sell. Okay, and of course, we talk about how you can utilize structure. Okay, how you can, of course, utilize the Fibonacci retracement around that 61.8, coincide with your structure. Of course, you do have some structure over here as well to look for that sell. Okay, so in this video here, we're going to talk a little bit more in terms of how to use the expansion concept to identify that. Okay, now if I zoom in a little bit, you do identify that here you have a high. Okay, you do have a new low here, you have a high, you have a higher low, and this is forming a higher high. Okay, which means that this is a mini uptrend going against the bigger downtrend. Okay, so how you utilize the Fibonacci expansion is that once you identify that, okay, this is a mini uptrend, but on a bigger perspective, I'm interested to sell, you can actually utilize the concept of 1:1, which is where the Fibonacci expansion comes in. Okay, so what you do is, of course, this is your starting low point. This is where you identify a first point. The second point is here. Okay, this is where the price stall and it starts to form a correction, and the end of the correction is here. Okay, so you do realize that, okay, this Fibonacci expansion of 1:1 comes in somewhere around, this area where you have a few things happening together. Okay, you do have your Fibonacci retracement level coming in around there. You do have your expansion ratios around there. You do have your structure, everything coming around this region. Okay, so that's where you know, okay, that area is a very good area for me to focus for sell opportunity. Okay, and of course this is what happened. You can see how price tagged that level of 1:1, and from there it has continued falling up to today. Okay, so again, this is not going to be like picture perfect 100% all the time, but of course as an example I will pick one to illustrate this principle that is the easiest, the most obvious for you to understand it. Okay, so I hope in this little sharing on my chart here better illustrate and give you a much better understanding of how we use Fibonacci expansion ratios, and of course put that into either you're using it as a profit target opportunity or you're looking at it from an entry perspective.
So I hope this particular video here give you a good understanding and showing you a little bit of how you are using this application directly into a potential trading strategy. If you benefited from this, I would really appreciate if you can share with me based on this series, right? What's the one thing that you love the most? What's the one thing or one key takeaway that benefited you in understanding this concept, these principles? How did it help you in your trading as well? And of course, right, if today you have yet to subscribe to my channel, make sure you do that, and at the same time, click onto the notification button so that whenever I release a new piece of content, you'll be the first one to be notified. Now with that, I'll see you in the next video.